Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just wanted to touch on something real quick in reference to a theory within the science of sociology. Sociology has three main sociological paradigms or theories. You have structural functionalism, you have conflict theory, and you have symbolic interactionism. Tonight, I just want to sort of give a short breakdown of structural functionalism. The founder of structural functionalism is Emil Durkheim. And this theory posits that the society as a whole is likened to a body, right? And each organ or each part of the body is a necessity. And that if you take any one of the parts of the body out, or if they malfunction or fail, then the society as a whole is not functioning as it should. The society is set up in such a way that the equilibrium and the balance of the society is always maintained. As a Muslim, we have our own structure and how we understand society. Our society should be structured. Our society, or we believe that the society should be governed by the Quran and the Sunnah. But we don't live in a society that's governed by the Quran and the Sunnah. And I think that it's important that we understand how society is actually structured, or the possibility of how the society is structured. Now, with these three major sociological theories, I do not believe that any one of the three is 100% correct or 100% has the answers, but that there's some overlap between them. There's some truth in all of them. And it's a matter of understanding and knowing application and context and time and place and what applies when and where and what time. It is through that understanding that we can then maneuver as a community, as a Muslim community, and as African Americans. We can know, once we understand the structure and how things operate, we can then figure out how we should be moving and what we should be doing in order to move ourselves forward. Now, structural functionalism basically says that, and I'm just going to give a short synopsis of it. Basically, it says that the society works as a human body. I mean, as a human body would work, and the human body has organs, right? And if any one of the organs malfunctions, doesn't work, whatever needs to be taken out, then the body as a whole is not going to work correctly, and there's going to be major problems. Likewise, with the society, all of the different groups, demographics, socioeconomic statuses, highs and lows, levels of education, all of them play a part in the functioning of the society. Now, I want us to really think about what that says. When we say, again, when we think in terms of structural functionalism, it is a necessity that you have oppressed people. It is a necessity that you have people who are lowly educated. It is imperative that you have groups that are only good for low wage work. When we think about how the society functions, imagine if everyone was a doctor, or everyone was from the highly educated and they were professionals. There would be no one to do the jobs that are considered low wage work. If you have a doctorate degree, a master's degree, Juris Doctorate, MD, anything like that, you're not going to run the register at Walmart. You're not going to make the fries in McDonald's or Burger King. You're going to want to work in your field and make the amount of money that, you feel is appropriate for your level of education. So structural functionalism basically justifies the oppression of certain groups as a part of maintaining the functioning of the society. There will always be people who are above others. But as Muslims, we understand that we don't oppress. There is nothing in Islam that says oppress people. There is nothing in Islam that says certain groups should be lower than other groups based on nationality, based on ethnicity, based on race, based on sex. These things are not within our deen, but that is how this society, according to structural functionalism, is set up. So let's just go with the idea that this is exactly how the society is set up. How do we as Muslims and how do we as African Americans overcome this? Now, I will say that I don't believe that any one of the three sociological theories, structural functionalism, conflict theory, or symbolic interactionism, has all of the answers to how the society is structured, but I do think that there is overlap between the three, and it boils down to time and place, era, and application. But how do we, as Muslims and as African Americans, overcome a system that is set up from its inception to maintain the status quo and to maintain the balance of power and to maintain or, give those who have the access to resources and have the ability to allocate resources to determine who gets what and when and how much? How do we as Muslims and as African Americans overcome that? Now, within structural functionalism, one thing that structural functionalism does not play well with is change. Change within the theory of structural functionalism is very slow. There is no fast-paced change. Change is always slow because if you have rapid change, it throws off the equilibrium. And maintaining the equilibrium is one of the purposes of the society. Again, the society works as a collective. The society works as a complex, interdependent parts that work together to maintain the society. So, if any part of the apparatus goes out of whack, then the system will find a way to sort of fix it. I mean, look at it as, let's say, all of the truckers in America decide to go on strike, right? So that means goods and materials are not being transported throughout the country. That means that people are not able to get what they need. Products are not being bought and sold. There is a definite ripple effect of negativity that would come from that, right? At some point, something is going to happen to maintain that status quo, to get things up and moving. Be it the government steps in and says, something, you either go back to work or you lose your jobs. Or the companies will say, no problem, you guys are all fired. We'll hire, they call them scabs, to break the protest line and take your jobs and get everything up and moving again. That's structural functionalism. So how do we, as, again, Muslims and African Americans, how do we overcome a system that is set up in such a way that change is slow, and change is not necessarily welcomed? change is always incremental in how it's applied. How do we overcome that? What I would say is that structural functionalism is in play in how this society is structured, but we also have to factor in capitalism. Now, capitalism is about money. It's about wealth. It's about the accumulation of wealth and resources. And if you notice, there are minority groups in America that are smaller than the African American population, but wield more power economically. They wield more power politically, and they can get their groups the things that they need because they wield that big economic bat. And we as African Americans do not wield that big bat. Our money is disenfranchised. It's fractioned. It's not moving in a collective like some of the other minority communities in America. Those communities that have a collective mission with their money, per se, they have the ability to push these politicians to get their communities what they need. Because, you know, the politicians, they want to be elected, they want the position, and they want your vote. When you have the economic power to back someone, that carries a lot of weight. And that also helps to determine what your community has and what your community does not have. I think that there needs to be a deep dive done on the economic situation of the African American community and the African American Muslim community. We need to, gain control of some of these institutions. We need to have a say-so in the outcomes of these institutions. For instance, education. We need to fund our own schools. By funding our own schools, we can 100% maintain the curriculum that we want to maintain for our children. When you are government funded, you have certain mandates and you have certain limitations and boundaries that you can't extend beyond. You are guided by those outside of your community. You are mandated by exogenous entities outside of your community that determine what you can and what you cannot teach and what you must teach. So when we look at the climate of society today, when we look at how society, the direction that society is moving, and you align that against Islamic values and the Islamic moral compass, they are in great opposition. So we need to take control of our own situation economically. We need to fund our own institutions. We need to maintain our own communities from an economic perspective. Once you do that, then you gain control over your direction. You gain control and you're able to define your own agency, which we actually don't have really the ability to do right now. Whereas if you look at smaller minority groups in America, they do get to define themselves. They do get to define themselves as a collective, and they control that. And they control that by money. Having that information, having that framework, now we need those people with the Islamic knowledge to understand this and formulate plans, formulate how to, so that we can maneuver either through or around the blockades and the challenges that our communities are facing. So That is structural functionalism. Structural functionalism is it's a very complex theory. What I gave you was just part and parcel of it. It was just a piece of it. There's manifest and latent functions, and there's a whole lot that goes into it. Just understand that it basically posits that the body, or that the society rather, works as a body. It works as a complex system of interdependent parts that rely on each part to do what it's supposed to do. And if any part of the component or of the whole malfunctions or is not upholding its responsibilities, that it throws the equilibrium of the entire society off whack. It throws it off. But the society, because it's set up to maintain the status quo, will find a way to rectify that the inequality, or the throwing off of the balance of the society. So that's just structural functionalism. If you think that it has some truth and some function, please let me know. Again, I haven't done a video in a while, and I was in the gym tonight, and I was just thinking about, some of the different sociological ideas, or theories rather, that I learned, and I wanted to share this with you guys. I think that it's important that this information is shared, because although we may not adhere to that as Muslims, that doesn't mean that those who have power in the society are not functioning based on this theory. Later on, I will touch on conflict theory by Karl Marx. I tend to lean more toward conflict theory in reference to how I believe the society actually works. But it's a mixture between conflict theory and structural functionalism. But again, I tend to lean more toward conflict theory, and I will save that for another video. If you find benefit in this video, please pass it on, share it, like, subscribe, and all that other stuff that people are supposed to say when they make videos. Bismillah, salatu wassalam wa ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.